Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we now will introduce our second debate topic for the evening. Our second debate topic will be, this House, the government believes that the pen is stronger than the sword. So I'd like you to give your attention to the Prime Minister from the government team. We'll open the debate with her opening remarks. Please give her a round of applause.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for introducing me and opening the discussion, and thank you for him. And we are gathering here to discuss about the topic, and our today's topic is pen is stronger than sword. Before we jump into the discussion, we need to define our topic, right? So the Visa House believes that using mental power is stronger to make the world peace than the physical power. So here, the mental power could mean literature and diplomacy, and the physical power can mean just creating wars and using the weapons. Okay. I'm going to give you our team's first argument. Our house believes that the sword can change people's instant action, but it cannot change people's mind, and this means using the physical power cannot change the world for a long time. So pen has power to change people's thinking, so which can last forever. For example, before Gandhi, who is famous for violence through non-violence, before Gandhi, most of the revolutions were dominating other nation or people was did through the violence. So using the physical power, dominate or manipulate other humankind and nation. But just think about the Gandhi case. He never used violence, but he brought peace to our world very effectively, right? So also after Gandhi, the Martin Luther King also lasted Gandhi's clear violence to non-violence in the world. So he fight against human segregation, racial segregation, fight against racial segregation, just making by changing human's mind through speech. You all remember his famous speeches, and even though there was no violence and there was no force to gather many people into one place, but many people got impressed by his speech, they are changed their thinking, and which led to bring peace peace into the world. Also, black people get the right to prohibit the racial segregation. And also, and there is another good example. In Korea, also there was a candlelight vigil against to retrieve the American troops to their country. Usually, if we think about the protest to government idea, we usually think about that the violence is most the powerful way to against the government's idea or thinking, but the candlelight vigil is a very good example. Without the violence, we can change. We can against the government idea, and we can appeal our public's opinion and make the change in the world. So, thank you for listening.
저 불러주시면 박수 칠 건데요. 1분 지나면 박수 치고 끝나기 1분 30초 전에 한 번 치고 끝나기 30초 전에 두 번 치고.
Okay, just 1 second. Okay, I'd like to introduce now the leader of the opposition. Will you please approach the stage and give your opening remarks? Fighting.
We think that sword is stronger than pen because sword can threaten very directly. For example, in World War II, Japan was forced to obey because of nuclear bomb, and that's why we can see the world peace. And the opposite team said that candlelight movement can change everyone's thinking, but for example, the old woman, sorry,
Move on to the next one.
Okay. And another reason is that sword is stronger than pen is that the nations that has more power can claim their rights through sword. For example, do you know Taliban? Taliban uses their power. If they did not use their power, they could not claim their rights. And for example, Korean independence movement, you know, for example, Yoon Bong-gil, Yoon Bong-gil, and another many groups use their power than pen. Korean in the past has small power, so we could not claim our rights and our independence. So we were forced to use sword. If we just use pen, we could not claim our independence to the world.
Keep going.
Yes, and the opposite group says Gandhi's non-violence movements can change others' thinking, but it takes a long time to change others' mind.
Right.
Through the non-violence movements, many people died. And
Keep going. Okay. Move on. If you don't know, move to the next point. Okay.
I think that's it.
That's it? No, it's okay. If you're finished, conclude. Okay. That's okay. Good job.
5 minutes and 26 seconds. 5 minutes and 26 seconds.
Let's give them a second. Okay. I'd like to introduce now the Deputy Prime Minister from the government to approach the stage and introduce her topic.
I'm Deputy, and I want to suggest an example of Taliban, like her. Taliban say that they want to have their own government, and at some point many people agree with them. But with current opinion, it can't be accepted because they deprive many people of their family and friends. Taliban deprive. So even though they agree with them, Taliban, they agree with Taliban. Someone who agree with Taliban, but they don't agree with their method they use because they use power. And also why Taliban doesn't have supporters of their opinion is because they don't have the power of diplomacy. the current power is in America. So that many nations have power, have some same opinion with America. I want to suggest another example of Jews. They have had their own territory over 100 years, but there are so many Jews students in Harvard. Jews have strong power in American economy. Many big companies have CEOs who are from Israel, and they use their power very usefully. And the current most powerful world, USA, can't ignore the remarks from Israelian Jews. Some authoritarians even told that someone who moved American economy is Jews. From that, I want to say that the pen can lead the power in their own parts, like their parts. I know that many people talk about short-term war, but I want to say that many nations have nuclear weapons. When attacked nations who don't have power move some other nations who have power, most powerful power, like who has nuclear weapons. They can have power from many nations, and in the long term they can win the power with power from diplomacy. So I want to conclude that someone who has pen potentially have also power. Thank you for listening.
About 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
1 second. Okay, I'd like to call the deputy from the opposition. The deputy from the opposition, would you please approach the stage and present your arguments? Drum roll, please. Da-da-da-da. IT.
We also insist that using pen rather than sword has a limit. There are 2 reasons to support my opinion. One reason is that using pen takes a lot of time. There is one story related to this reason. During Joseon Dynasty, send 3 men. Yeah, 3 men. Hague Universal Exposition to announce Japan's illegal behavior, which took away Joseon sovereignty. But many countries didn't hear, and this didn't hear Joseon Dynasty's announcement. So we Korean government continually insisted our opinion, but they didn't accept it. So if we are using sword such as war, Japan maybe didn't conquer Joseon. Second is that using pen is level of intelligibility. For example, many German sorry. Many Germany. Hitler killed many Jews. It is called genocide. But many nations and people who wanted peace insisted it stopped German from killing Jews. But only they are telling storyteller.
I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
They only
It's okay. Have confidence. Have confidence.
they only insist their opinion, but use practical method.
Good.
So finally, if they use however, if they use sword method, we could stop Hitler from killing many Jews. Yeah, that's it.
4 minutes.
Okay. Are we doing replies in this?
Well, with goes first.
Yeah, I know, but are we going to do reply in this debate?
I'll go first.
Are we doing reply or no? No. Okay, so we're just going to do whip then. Whip will be the concluding. Okay. Okay. All right then. I'd like to call the whip from the government to approach the stage and present his argument. Please give your attention.
Professor, for he.
I'm sorry?
There's no summary at that point, right?
There's no
We
way.
don't have a summary of the
We should.
We can have summary.
Okay, we should. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the whip of the government speaker, and so far, the sword and the pen debate has been very fierce, and I found that there was one major clash point I couldn't identify anymore, but one, and it's very important. And this clash point is how pen or sword has impact on us. How? The government team, the opposition team said the sword has more direct impact on us. And then the government team said pen has more indirect impact on us, but long-term impact. So we can summarize both teams' clash point as for government, pen is an indirect method, but it has long-term effect. For the opposition team, sword has direct impact, but has short-term effect on us. The government team, we talked about Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. As you know, Gandhi is very famous and recorded in our history books, not because of his violent behavior, but because of his pacifist idea, and which is thought as a very important history among famous historians and scholars. Because Gandhi started the non-violence movement, the world has changed. now there's many NGOs and peace movement, peace movement groups like Unity Peace, Greenpeace, and etc. etc. Because of that, Gandhi changed the mentality of our humankind. Now humankind no longer resort to violence as the only means to change an action. But that wasn't the case long time ago, when we didn't have language, when we didn't have literature, when we didn't have much of a reason. Like primitive days of humankind, when they evolved from monkeys. Yes. All they did was using the sword. They didn't know how to use the pen. They only knew that it has direct and short-term effect. If they wanted food from another person, they didn't use negotiation, diplomacy, nor communication. They just beat them, and if they were stronger than them, they could take it, they could steal it, they could kill the other person and take it. Which is almost like an animal behavior. But we are not like that, as you all know. We have changed. Language has appeared. Hundreds of languages have appeared. And we have found many ideologies such as Gandhi's Peace Through Nonviolence and Martin Luther King's Jr., the speech, I Have a Dream, which inspired many black African Americans to think that they have the rights because they're human. Because of that, now we can live in peace. We don't have to stick to violence to get what we want. We can insist our rights. Thus, the pen is superior to sword. The sword appeared first, and then the pen, chronically, which means from the sword evolved the pen. Therefore, pen is superior notion that we all already know. How many of us use violence in order to get on the bus when we don't have a ticket? How many we do? We can always use negotiation and communication. We could always ask for help. There are many people who are willing to reach their hands out to us to help. We just have to ask. We don't have to use violence. And I believe this flashpoint pushes government's arguments forward. And I believe the government's arguments are very strong. And I'd like to end my speech. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Let's go ahead and have the opposition whip, to please approach the stage and present your arguments.
I'm on this side why these people cheer me on. I understand.
It's just little etiquette, respect for the debate.
Thank you very much for attention. I am the opposition side, and I'm going to weep against your opposition, against your opinion. First of all, they told me the pen is much stronger. The pen's power lasts long, and power lasts shortly. But I'm definitely against that opinion. In the case, pen's power could be short, and compared with the power and authority. The reason is so simple. If the country has some power and authority, then the other countries they can have good effects. they can have a good power, and naturally their power can affect to the whole country. For example, in Korean War, as you know, there were so many violence and many difficult times. But at the time, if we had enough power and authority, even though it was not the
case. Oh, sorry.
yeah, even though they don't have enough scholars, and if we had enough power, we can beat the Japan and we can get the power. So, for example, but they told us the Martin Luther King and the peaceful effect. And Martin Luther King, I agree with that opinion. Martin Luther King was very peaceful and they were effective to many people. But I think he was almost a saint. And in the case of Lee Sun-shin or many famous people in Korea, they gave powerful effect to many people in the country. So I know that they give good effects and they give good information to many people, but it is restricted in some case. If you had enough power and more thing, we can do more thing than the country. It's our opinion. In the case of candlelight movement, they protested against the government, and it's more vigorous. They demonstrate with each other in the Gwanghwamun, and people lying on the street, and they demonstrate with each other. They want to get something from the government and the company and their life. In the case, if we were more vigorous and we were more powerful, it would be more effective. Just it's not enough to get only use the pen, literature, diplomacy. Is not enough in my thought. And they told us about the mental power, literature, diplomacy, and physical power were related to using weapon. But I think using weapon is not only one part, only in physical power, because I think science is physical power. Yes, it's related to intelligence, but intelligence is not only mental power, but also physical power. And in the case of nuclear plant, even if we have the nuclear plant and we don't have anything, we don't have any great scholarships or many book authors or many people who are very famous in the newspaper or news, they don't affect us. Only one thing, the nuclear power would be very effective in that case. I know it's not fair. It's very unfair in the case, but the science is very important in our lives and it's almost related with the physical power, not the mental power. I think your expression always win my opinion. And anyway, and they talked about the negotiation. I agree with the opinion that if some scholars are very intelligent and smart, negotiation goes very well. But if the country or the person is very powerful and they have good science results, it goes much well. think about it. We talked about the Taliban. Yeah.
I didn't say that.
Stand up.
I didn't say that America has many people who are intelligent, but they have the power of diplomacy. But you didn't catch my opinion.
Okay.
I understand they talked about the negotiation, the skill of diplomacy, and I understand their skill of the diplomacy is quite good, quite well, but is it related with the power, with the power and authority? If they have authority and they have good scientific background, and it helps them to negotiate better. It's like a mood, atmosphere. I think in Korea's case, Korean authors and scholars are very intelligent and they are more effective in some cases. They know many linguistic theories and scientific theories and negotiation theories, but I'm not sure why Korean people are always bad in negotiation against American and Canada or advanced country. It's our opinion. Yes. It's not only my opinion, my team's opinion.
Okay, time's up.
Okay, excellent, very good. Are we doing a summary from each team?
Well, there's a summary first.
Okay, so the opposition team will present their summary first, so let's listen to the summary from the opposition.
Summary 4 minutes.
Okay.
Nice to meet you, everybody. Thanks for giving me a wonderful opportunity to participate in this debate. And yes, our main argument is that sword is stronger than pen. We've been talking about 3 main arguments today, and I just want to summarize it. And first, basically, we talked about the power, and let us think about world history. During the World War I and II, power made many powerful countries dominate the world. For example, the United States dominate the world because they have military strength. And during the World War II, Japan was defeated by atomic bomb. And for many history evidence, I believe power is the most effective way to convey, to express their. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. You're doing fine.
And another argument is about for unpowerful groups or people. In other words, if some groups or people doesn't have any power, they need, by using physical effect, they can express their rights or opinions. For example, when Japan dominated the South Korea, there was a Korean independence movement, and because at that time Korean people didn't have any power, they expressed their rights by physical effect. And like what our members say, Taliban tried to make a social issue by
terror.
Oh yeah, by terror. And these ways show that it was to let many people know their issues that they want to talk about. And yeah, this is the main point. And the last main point is about limitations of pen. By using Word, basically it takes too much time, and the most important point is that they cannot make a huge effect on society because it is very weak in terms of the way it conveys. Like indirect methods cannot make a huge effect. And for those main points, we believe sword. In other words, power is stronger than pen. Thanks for listening to my last speech.
Go ahead, I need to make a quick phone call. But go ahead, please. The opposition from, or I'm sorry, the summary from the government, please approach the stage and present your argument.
Okay, the final speaker.
Okay, I'm going to summarize our team's argument. Our first argument was that sword can change only instant people's only instant action, but it would be very short-term effect. But however, using the mental power can change people's mind, which can affect for a long term. We can expect long-term effect. Okay, so we gave you an example. Two famous figure, which was Gandhi and Martin Luther King. They didn't use any violence to make the world peacefully, but it was their speech and their non-violence movement impressed and changed other people's thinking. So, which made a very startled revolution in the world. And also, we also point out that the candlelight Brazil was more powerful than the violent protest against the current government issue. And our second argument was that the Jews, even though the Jews have less power, physical power than the U.S., but they are with their mental power, they are taking very important role and control the U.S. economy nowadays. So, which give you an evidence that the mental power is more stronger than the having physical power. And I want to give you, if we just think about that, the pen is stronger than the sword, it is too broad and it is more abstract. So I want to give you a very specific example. When we correct a child's behavior, we rarely have a conversation, or it is very hard to understand what they did wrong. So we usually spank the children like that. But if as the children grow up, and if they have a reason to think about that and realize what is wrong, and how when we correct their behavior, we usually make a negotiation, or we change their behaviors by having the conversation, and which can correct the children's behavior forever and in a long-term effect. So we think that the pen is more stronger than.
I believe that concludes the debate, so I will now give my final remarks. Okay, again, a lot of first-time debaters here tonight, so I'd like to again commend you on an excellent effort on your first debate. I know tonight was probably your first time getting up here on the stage, speaking in front of everybody, so again, I'd like to give you a round of applause. Congratulations. I commend your bravery. It's not an easy task to get up here and speak in front of everybody. Okay? Let's go ahead and start with the Prime Minister from the government. Again, the topic, the pen is stronger than the sword. Prime Minister from the government opened very strong, right? You started with mental power is stronger than physical power to create peace, right? Your topic here was using mental power, right? We said the pen is stronger than the sword. You defined the debate by saying that the pen is mental. The mental power, the sword, is the physical power. So you define the debate from the beginning. Very good. That's what we should do in every debate, so we know what the premise or the topic is. You went on to support your claim by saying the sword can change in instant action, but the power of the mental can change in the long term. That was the premise of your debate. That was the foundation of your debate. You went on to introduce examples such as Gandhi, an excellent example showing that we can change the world through nonviolence. And that has created revolutions that have sparked on with Martin Luther King. So you introduced that these kinds of actions of nonviolence can spur on revolutions without using any kind of physical power. That's very good. You also went on to say that after hearing these kinds of perspectives, people can change just by hearing the voice, right? Martin Luther King's speeches. People really believed in that. But what I was surprised is that I didn't hear any POI from your team. Nobody said anything about people's voices changing and making revolutions, right? You guys should have stood up and said, hey, wait a second. People like the Taliban, right? You came on later and said, but they said that people start revolutions through nonviolence. But you should have stood up and said, no. When people are very weak, they can't use nonviolence. The Taliban, right, would have been a perfect example to POI right there. So I would recommend that you POI a little bit more. Okay, but it was an excellent opening debate. I want to comment, though, that in this debate there were very little POIs. Yes. There were not very many POIs. Maybe we're a little tired now. Yeah. We're sleepy and we're not interested in POIing, but you really need to use POIs, right? Attack the other team as they're presenting their cases. Okay? Let's move on to the opposition leader. This was your first debate tonight, I know. And so you started out by saying that we believe that the sword can threaten better than the pen. Okay? That was strong. And you used the example, the atom bomb that was used in World War II brought world peace. Government, why did you not attack this? The bomb of World War II did not create peace. It started the Cold War. This would have been an excellent time to attack on your team, right? When America dropped the atomic bomb on Japan, it created the reaction that started the Cold War, that went on to the Korean War, Vietnam War, and the Cold War that ensued between Russia and USA. Okay? Good. Then you moved on to your next point. You said the nations that have smaller power. Careful with your vocabulary. Smaller power, weaker nations. Right? We don't want to say smaller power. I know you didn't know the word for it, but make sure that we use the correct vocabulary. Weaker nations. But you made an excellent point, I'm sorry. You said that you talked about the Korean independence movement, and you said Korea was at that time a weak country. A country of small power. He said it was a weak country and that they had to use force in order to make change. That was an excellent point. You also said the pen is not effective. That was great vocabulary. You said pen is not effective. The sword is much more effective. It's stronger. Okay? And then you also said what Gandhi tried to do, he even said would take a long time. Gandhi even believed that violence through nonviolence would take an incredibly long time. So, proving your point again, that the sword is much more effective. Okay? One thing I will also say, when you're debating, if you don't know what to say, move on to the next topic. Move quickly. If you stand for a long time not saying anything, it's very uncomfortable and awkward for the audience, right? So if you forget your point, go to the next point. Quickly move to the next point, okay? Try not to stand too long, okay? And again, also, no conclusion. Try to conclude your topic. But you presented some very good points. All right, let's move on to the Deputy Prime Minister of the government. Your reply immediately was to the Taliban, right? Because she presented the Taliban. You said, the Taliban is not such a wonderful group. They destroy families. They ruin society, right? They presented the Taliban as being like these freedom fighters. And she said, wait a minute, Taliban, they're terrorists. They're not good people, right? So they countered the attack very good, right? That was an excellent way to attack on the other team, okay? Then you brought up the point about the Jewish society, saying that they have had their own territory for many years. They do have their own territory now, though. But you're right, they didn't for many years. But they still had a way to create a lot of power. Not just in America, but in Europe, too, right? They created a lot of power there, hence why we had World War II. Okay? Good. That was an excellent point as well. Let's move on. Opposition Prime Minister, the Opposition Prime Minister, you said the power of the pen has a limit. Excellent. Very good strategy. You came out very strong. You said that the pen takes too long. Too long. I like that. Very simple, very concise, straight to the point. And you brought up, I think, one of the strongest points of the night. You said when the Korean government sent representatives to The Hague, I think that was an excellent example. You said, we sent representatives from the Korean government to The Hague, the war criminal court, and you presented your case against Japan. But the court did not hear. They did not respect what the Korean government presented, and thus Japanese took control and took power in Korea. So you said, we tried to use the pen, but the pen didn't work, right? That was an excellent example. Okay? What else? You went on to say, you made another example about Hitler during the Nazi regime, saying that people, if they would have used the sword rather than the pen, maybe we would have prevented World War II. So this is another excellent point. Good. Again, same thing. I know you were having some problem with vocabulary. That's okay. In the future, be strong, move on. If you don't know the word, keep moving. Keep moving forward, right? Don't stall, okay? Good. Going on to the government whip. The government whip came up and presented the clash point. He said that the clash point was that how should the pen and the sword have an impact? And you said that the sword was a short-term direct impact, and the pen was a long-term indirect impact. Great way to summarize the clash point. I thought that was beautifully done. You went on to say that Gandhi's actions have had ripple effects on future generations. Gandhi's legacy, right, has continued to affect many people for many generations. Very good. Then you brought up the point about primitive, cavemen, right? You brought up the point about that when men were first, creating societies, that the way that they operated is that they fought each other. If they wanted food, they went and fought that other guy and took his food. That's how we dealt with things. We didn't use communication. But from the other side, I would have POI'd this. I would have said, did it really create change? Fighting that other guy to take his food, did that change the world? Didn't really revolutionize the world. That was just not thinking, right? But I would have POI'd against that one. But that was a good point, bringing up the primitive way of life. And then you brought up, because now we live in peace, because of Martin Luther King, you said, now we're able to live in peace in this world, right? People like Gandhi, Martin Luther King, our world is peaceful. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you meant, but that's what I heard. Yes. And I thought, is the world that we live in much more peaceful now because of these guys? Maybe a little bit. But I think if you are an African American living in the United States, maybe you wouldn't feel that way today.
Still needs work.
Yeah, there always needs to be work, okay? And you also said, we should always try to communicate to solve problems. And I think that was a very strong point about this. Good, let's move on to the opposition whip. Opposition whip, you said, the pen is much stronger. You brought that point up, the pen is much stronger, and you said, I don't agree. And that's excellent, you should have said that. But then you came on and you said, Martin Luther King, I do agree. Martin Luther King was successful. And you said something I was kind of shocked. You said, I think Martin Luther King was kind of like a saint.
Gandhi was a saint, right?
Did you say Gandhi or Martin Luther King? I thought I heard Martin Luther King was like a saint.
Oh, really? Gandhi라고 그런 거. Gandhi.
Okay, maybe Gandhi. Okay, maybe I misunderstood. I was a little bit taken aback. Okay, I said he was like a saint. Okay, but you brought up some interesting points. Then you went on to say that war is not the only sword. You brought up the point about science being another part of the sword, and I thought that was a really interesting point that he brought up. That he said, we're focusing on war as being the main catalyst with the sword, but we're forgetting about science, right? The intellectuals, the scholars, the intelligent people in society that are also creating this element of the sword, right? But again, there was no POI from you guys. You should have POI'd on that. Yes. You should have attacked that. Science is a sword. Your team is supposed to attack things like that. But you also brought up the point, if the country is more powerful, they can negotiate better. And I think that was a very strong point, that the sword, you're talking about the sword. These countries like the United States, Western Europe, they're more powerful. They have a better negotiation power, or they're better at negotiating. Okay? Good. The summaries. Summaries were excellent. I thought the summaries from both teams were very, very strong. The first, the opposition summary, you talked about power. You brought up World War II and World War I and World War II. And you said that because of these victories, most of the countries that won, like the United States, France, England, Western Europe, became incredibly powerful from these victories in World War II. Excellent point. Very, very good. You also said the weak groups, your second point said, weak groups need to use their power or military strength to be recognized. That's right, right? We've seen throughout the world that we have to use military strength in order to be recognized, especially weaker countries. And you said that using the pen will not last a long time, which was the premise of your argument. Good.